So you're a handsome dude, but you have anxiety or maybe you're slightly autistic. This is Radical Self-Respect with Jared Mello. I do mindset coaching. Email me at mellowmentoring@gmail.com if you want help with relationships, mindset, mental health stuff, developing a supplement routine, being more assertive, and all that stuff is under what I just call Radical Self-Respect, the Radical Self-Respect umbrella. And thanks very much to everyone who's been liking, commenting, and subscribing. It's been very great to have you on board. But on to today's video. Being an attractive guy, but also having severe anxiety or maybe autism or Asperger's or something of that ilk. Now this is an issue that you won't get too much sympathy for, and that's also kind of part of the problem. But other dudes will probably be jealous of you for being more attractive. And women often don't understand men's problems, period, let alone this problem. So what is the problem? And I think what happens to guys in this scenario, and I think I've been in this scenario before, I had severe anxiety. And it's like when you approach women and you try to talk to them, but you're just extremely awkward and you don't have any confidence, you don't have self-esteem, you don't have assertiveness. And so it just doesn't come over well. It doesn't go over well. And women, they expect you, especially when you're more attractive, they expect you to be more on top of your social game. They expect you to be like, oh, you're going to be like the frat boy, or you're going to be like the dominant alpha in any particular space. But then when you are not like that, it's like an extra punch in the gut to them, where they get extra disappointed, where maybe they're giving you signals to come over and talk to them. They're giving you signals, giggling, smiling, touching their hair, all the usual stuff. But then when you go over there, it's like you're just not fun. Or maybe you're called intense. Or maybe it's just you can't put sentences together. You can't make eye contact. Or whatever it is, it just doesn't go over well. And so this is why I know, especially as a guy, looks only go so far. Dominant frame, being like in charge of your reality, being your mental point of origin and owning it, that is way more important than just being attractive. Now, again, there are certain instances, of course, where a guy who's attractive, he's going to have opportunities that a person who's not as attractive probably just will not have. And that part is true too. But the other problem for the attractive guy with anxiety or who has slight autism is people presume him to be more stuck up. They think, oh, he must feel like he's better than everybody. He's not being like the jolly alpha guy, the guy who's really in control of himself and secure in his own skin, comfortable in his own skin. But it's really not that at all in this scenario. In this scenario, it's actually the guy's probably more introverted. The guy has anxiety. The guy just isn't socially graceful, probably isn't socially calibrated, and it doesn't go over well. And people presume all sorts of negative things. Like, guys can be jealous, like I said. Women, they think you're stuck up. They think that, oh, he just thinks he's better than me. And it's really none of those things at all. It's really just it's all in the guy's head, really. The guy isn't comfortable in his own skin. And so the problem for guys in this situation is they got to find a way out of it, because you got to be more congruent with how we look. And that's ultimately the issue. When you're handsome, but you have severe anxiety, uncomfortability in your own skin, it does not appear to be congruent. It appears like, well, this guy looks like a dominant alpha type dude, but then he acts like this. And it just doesn't go over well. And so for me in my own life, I developed a supplement routine. And now, I have different problems now. I won't say I don't have problems now. I certainly do. But I'm at least more confident. I can string sentences together. I have like a contextual realm that I'm really competent in socially. And it helps. I'm never going to be like the extremely extroverted person that's the life of a party that enjoys small talk. No, quite the contrary. I hate that stuff. I would much rather give a speech to 1,000 people than have to do small talk before a show with tens of people. Something about those little social graces, they can still bother me. They can still just annoy me. And this is also something that happens with dating and flirtatious interactions too. There's a type of guy that usually they're more intense. They're maybe old souls. I'm going to make a video about this too separately, I think, but it's difficult for them to get to the playful attitude of flirting and banter. And maybe they don't have much patience for it. Maybe it's just they think they're above it. Whatever it may be, it's a problem, because if you want to be successful in the dating world, there's a certain level of intelligence that goes over best. And it's maybe not the guy who's super smart, but you got to be socially intelligent enough. And I was thinking about that today, where there's like an invisible hand of social interactions, where people just intuitively know sometimes what's acceptable and what's not. And a guy with severe anxiety or a guy who's Asperger's like, they don't really pick up on that invisible hand as well. But to other people, it can be quite obvious. But again, I don't really want to talk about problems without also talking about solutions. If you're one of these guys that has severe anxiety, maybe slight autism, Asperger's, I do think there are supplements that could really help you. Some of which are things like GABA, niacinamide, tyrosine, ashwagandha, choline, a good probiotic. All of these things could possibly help. And it helps because there's certainly something physical going on when someone has severe anxiety. And for all I know, I might have had a slight case of autism as a child, because if you ask my family members, extended family members too, they would say, oh, that kid was me. I was extremely quiet. I was extremely asocial. Was it autism? I was never diagnosed as that. But would it surprise me if I had a slight case of it? No, it would not surprise me at all, because a lot of my symptoms added up to that. But there's ways, and there's something physical going on in these instances, I think, that has to be addressed. And someone who doesn't have this kind of mental illness, they're not going to be able to understand it. And it's different than trauma, too. Like, there are some people who think, oh, you heal your trauma, everything will get better. I think that's true for some people, but it's certainly not true for everybody. There's people that have physical, chemical imbalances in their brain that they have to be addressed. There's a scientific component to this. There's a biological component that your neurotransmitters are just not functioning and firing properly. And so neurotransmitters that are often affected are dopamine, serotonin, GABA, norepinephrine, epinephrine. All of these things play a role, and I think they need to be addressed. And so for the handsome man with severe anxiety or a slight case of autism/Asperger's, some of these supplements could really help you get a little more comfortable in your own skin. It's not the only thing that would help. There's certainly other mindset techniques that, along with supplementation or medication, could go a really far way. But I wanted to talk about this issue because I've been seeing people on YouTube comment this, how, it sucks to be the guy who's attractive but has severe anxiety or is autistic because of the poor reception they get. And they're right, they do get a poor reception, but they're not going to get much sympathy from other people about it. But I do understand their plight. Because you get people that, and the women, they look at you one way, they expect you to be this thing, and then when you open your mouth and they realize you're just not socially calibrated, you're awkward, it can be like a big letdown. And so a guy who gets this over and over and over again, it can be pretty demoralizing, because it's helped me to be aware of the fact that mental, internal game is everything. Looks are only the first step. Gets people in the door, but without the internal game, the same things can happen over and over and over again. Having good frame, having confidence, that is by far the most important thing in my eyes. Because, now of course, you'd rather be attractive and have those things too. Of course you would, of course. But having the internal game it'll last much longer than the guy who just has looks. Because for many years there in my 20s, before I kind of finally developed my supplement routine out of it, the same routine would happen over and over again with women. They'd be attracted to me, and then I'd blow it with awkwardness, then I'd blow it with neediness. And for literally years, the same things would happen. Now, of course, I wasn't on my purpose as much back then. That also contributed. I was also obsessed with women. That also contributed. Now, part of that's being human, though, too. Everybody has a hungry heart kind of thing. Everyone, they want sex. They can be horny. Yes, yes, and yes. But I took it too far. I was obsessed, and I repelled, and anxiety and awkwardness certainly contributed to that repelling. Maybe BPD symptoms, too. But the solutions, I say, reach out to me for a consultation if you're one of these guys out there that's got severe anxiety or maybe slight autism. There may be supplements out there that could absolutely make a difference. If you're anything like me, I didn't think supplements could make a difference before until I actually tried them. And then when I found, the first one I took that made a difference was SAM-E. It connected a part of myself that I just didn't have any assertiveness. I didn't have anything to fall back on when I wanted to be assertive and tell people no. But then when I started taking SAM-E, then all of a sudden it connected a part of me that was disconnected, and I felt stronger. I felt more assertive. I felt more powerful. And I could only guess it's because there was some sort of chemical imbalance in my brain. There was a shortage of some sort of neurotransmitter, and SAM-E addressed it. I think SAM-E works on norepinephrine and serotonin, maybe even dopamine too. But it absolutely helped. And there are ways through this. I don't want to just talk about problems. I want to empathize with someone's issues, like being attractive and having anxiety, but I also want to help you through it. Because I get it, it's not going to be an issue that a lot of people are going to really care to hear you complain about. Like a guy who's not so attractive can hear an attractive guy complaining about this issue. I'm like, well, shut the hell up. Who do you think you are? I wish I had your problems. I wish I was the guy that could attract the attention. But what they don't realize is, without the internal game too, the looks really don't go too far. It doesn't really matter. So that's my video for today. Hopefully people out there can identify with this. Hopefully everyone can. And women who listen to my channel, hopefully this gives you just a view of some of the things guys go through. Because I know women, some people think that, for example, any guy who complains about the dating world, the guy thinks that they're entitled to sex. And that's not really what it is at all. Everybody wants connection. Everybody wants some intimacy, if not validation or whatever. And it can be difficult for people. But hopefully in this channel, I want to give people a view of both sides. I try to talk about women sometimes too. I know they don't have it easy either. There are things they struggle with too. So comment below if you're one of these guys I was talking about today that have had this issue. You've been attractive, but you had severe anxiety. Maybe you have Asperger's. Maybe you have a slight case of autism. Let us know your experience below. I think it would be eye-opening, especially for more of the black pill community that thinks looks is everything. I think it'd be really beneficial for them to see. And I also think it'd be beneficial for women to see too, so that maybe they can just be aware this is a possibility too. Just because a guy looks like a Chad doesn't always mean he really is a Chad. He might have something going on where his looks are not congruent with how he is. So that's my video for today. Like I said, comment below what you think, and thank you very much for watching.